If you enjoy listening to inspirational stories from people just like us, facing the fear and doing it anyway, then you're in the right place. My name is Claire Hill, and this is the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. Hello, welcome to the No Rest for the Vivid podcast. My name is Claire Hill. I'm the founder of the Vivid Club, but also the person to help you transform from a warrior to a warrior boss. Today, I have Sarah Alex Carter here to share her story, which is a very powerful one. I met Sarah at a Money Mavens event in January, and I'm really honoured to have had her on the podcast to share what has made her be the person she is today and being able to share her story to help others. It's really inspirational. So please enjoy. While I have your attention, it's the, excuse my Google alert, I am hosting the Vivid Club Festival from Tuesday the 18th of April to Thursday the 20th of April. And it is there's going to be lots of options of training from me, but also from the Vivid Club members themselves. It is going to be an amazing event because we are going to help you to amplify your strengths, inject more joy into your business, but also to support you to transform from a warrior to a warrior boss. And that is my mission, to do that. So if you are interested, click the link in the show notes to get your free ticket. If you have any questions, please send me an email, claire@clarehill.uk. Nice and simple email address now, isn't it? But yeah, if you've got any questions, let me know. Enjoy this episode. If any of this resonates with you and you feel inspired, please get in touch with Sarah. I know she'll really appreciate the feedback and the comments. All right, enjoy. Hello, wonderful human.
Hello. Oh, it's so good to see you.
Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
Are you having a good day?
I am, yes. I'm having a really good day. It's half term here in Wales at the moment. So, having a nice week with the kids.
Amazing. Because currently half terms and stuff matter to you, but soon
I know.
they won't. We'll allude to that later on. But I had the pleasure of meeting you recently in real life, and that's actually the first time we met. And that never really happens like in my world now. Normally I meet somebody on Instagram first, or a social network. Yeah. But I met you in the flesh. And yeah. I remember as soon as I saw you, you walked in with that leopard skirt on. And I was like, oh, she's a bit of me. And I was like instantly drawn to you because obviously I'm obsessed with animal print. But you then, and we didn't really chat on the first day, I don't think. And then the second day, because we did an in-person event with Josie and Charlotte from the Money Mavens, who have been on the podcast as well. You can go and listen to their episode. And so we're in their world, and you were there. Yeah. And then you said something. Well, you said something about your book, and I was like, oh, you've written a book? I'm writing a book. So then I was like, oh, I love her even more now. And then you said something about shining your light and you made me cry.
Oh, I know.
And I was like, can you text me what you said? Because I need to write it down. So yeah, it's this. Anyway, you walked into my life about 6 weeks ago, a month ago.
Yeah.
And here you are on the podcast. We've had a virtual cup of tea, and it's just nice.
It's been so good. I think it's meant to be as well. One of those just meetings. And I got a bit I was a bit fangirly because I was like, oh, when you listen to someone on someone's podcast and it's strange because you sort of start to get to know them.
I forgot this bit because you said to me, aren't you the wire girl? And I didn't understand, I didn't get what you said, even though I'm what anyway. You said that at the lunch on the first day, and I was like, no, I don't think so. And you went, oh, I thought you made like your Vivid Wire, aren't you? I was like, oh yeah, I am.
Yeah. And I was a bit like, oh my gosh, have I got the right person? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure.
That was the first time anyone's ever done that.
Oh, see, I'll be asking for your autograph next.
It was just like, oh my God, you've listened to me before you've met me, and you know who I am. It was so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was really, really lush. That whole event was really, really amazing. But then we had a little virtual cuppa because well, I'm not going to say why, because you can tell your story.
Yeah.
But I've just gone into how, how I've fallen in love with you and all of that. So do you want to tell people what's your name? Where do you come from? What's your story? Where do I go?
Oh, brilliant. So I'm Sarah Alex Carter, and as you can hear from my voice, I'm Welsh and I live here in South Wales with my husband and my 2 children, and we've got a little rescue Patdale terrier called Gwen. And so my background is, do you want me to kind of launch into
A once upon a time.
a
Yeah.
once upon a time?
Just tell all the juicy
Yeah.
details. I think the feedback I get from people is they love a story on this podcast.
Yeah.
How it all began.
Once upon a time, I decided to become a teacher.
Been there.
Yeah, I know. My gosh, that was 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, I decided I'm going to become a teacher. And what's really interesting, I don't know if I've told this story to anyone apart from people who know me, is that I went into teaching because I wanted to do art therapy.
Right.
So it was never my intention to become a teacher. It was to become an art therapist. And at the time, you could only do art therapy if you'd had clinical practice or if you'd worked with children or young people.
Okay.
And I thought, right, this is a way in. I can study and do my PGC.
Yep.
And then I can go on to do my art therapy. And 20 years later, currently, I'm a teacher.
Currently.
So 20 years ago, started teaching, and my background is art and design. So I love all your creativity and I love all the stuff that you do. And I've taught art and design to all ages. And at the moment, I teach illustration to degree students, and I've done that now for 7-8 years. But yeah, I've done a bit of everything with teaching, and it's been an amazing foundation for my business and what I'm doing now. And it's taught me so much. I think when you're a teacher, the best teachers, I'm blowing my own trumpet.
Good. We like to blow our own trumpets.
I think the best teachers are the ones that keep learning.
Yes.
And they're not the ones who just kind of say, well, I know it all. And what can you teach me?
Yeah, because you've got to be a good teacher. If you're teaching how to love learning, if you don't love learning yourself, then how can you teach how to love learning? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I find, if I was teaching the stuff I was teaching 20 years ago still, that would be really dry and boring. And it's just as soon as you get that kind of thirst for knowledge. So I think I'm a perpetual student. I'm like a lifelong learner, definitely. And so then, as part of being a teacher, there's the pressure, there's the expectation. And as part of that kind of desire to keep moving forward, I'm very much an A type. So I love to achieve. I'm very much kind of a driven person. I decided that I was going to climb the academic career ladder, and that would involve things like an MA, a PhD, writing courses, attending conferences, publishing papers. And so I did that, and I then went on to write the degree course that I now currently teach on. And at the same time, I moved house, had a baby, and was not handling a general anxiety disorder very well at all. Okay. And so my body decided to say stop quite abruptly. Yeah. And it meant that I spent 6 months in recovery mode from a nervous breakdown, what would be termed as a nervous breakdown. And so I found myself 6 years ago in a life that I had built based on expectations of a career and what I should be doing. And everything just had to be stripped away, because if I was to continue and to carry on being the mum, the wife, the sister, all of those really good things first, I needed to get myself in the right place. And so I had to go through a huge period of, I wouldn't say unlearning the bad habits, but replacing them, replacing bad habits, replacing bad thinking. And out of that came this incredible opportunity to say, what do I really want? And so the journey continued then. I went back to work. I cut my hours to part-time. I stepped back as course leader because it was all stripped away. It was like, right, if I'm not the achiever, if I'm not the course leader, if I'm not Sarah, the go-getter, then who am I? And I really had to dig deep and find out, right, what do I really want? And I met with a coach because I was at a crossroads and I was like, do I continue this academic route or is there something else? And I just knew there was something else. I knew deep down I was living a life of should and that there was something else for me, but I didn't know what it was. So I met with a coach, which I would recommend to anyone, to get someone in your corner who can put a pair of eyes on your life from a very objective point of view and say, why do you do what you do? Where do you want to go next? And it was my love of writing. And that came out in that coaching session. It was 90 minutes of just realization of, I want to write. I want to share my story. I want to share other people's story, be a writer. And as a result of that, I wrote the book, Upward, my first self-development book.
Which I have here.
Yeah.
On YouTube, if you're watching.
I've got my copy.
Oh, look at us.
Yeah, we're twinning. So I wrote my book. I'd started blogging, writing for magazines, wrote my book, and out of the book then came the business, which is a year old, and that is all about well-being and well-being coaching, supporting others to help them not get to the place that I went. That's the key.
Yeah. And so you wrote the book?
Yeah.
How did you start that journey of formulating the idea and getting the writing process underway?
So it started with the idea of writing for joy, and it had no monetary value attached to it. So the writing came from a place of, I'm doing this because I love it and it's just pure joy for me. And so I started with a blog. So there was a blog that I wrote weekly, and that got me into the groove of writing. Because even though I've written all my life, and I talk about writing as though it's that boyfriend next door, it's the good friend that you've got next door that is always there for you. They're always around, and you don't realize that they end up being the love of your life.
Absolutely. That is such a good oh my God, that's just like exactly what it is. Because anyway, sorry, I've just how much I love writing as well. I could literally talk about writing all day. Go on, sorry.
And no, absolutely. And it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, this has been here all my life. It's something I've done all my life, but it's been in various guises. And sometimes we so often think to be a writer, you've got to do a certain, or to be a creative, you've got to do a certain thing or be a specialist in a certain area or really hone in on one thing. But writing is the one thing, but it's just taken loads of different guises. Like I wrote poetry when I used to work at the museum in Cardiff. I wrote in my journals all the way through my university degree. And my lecturers it drove them crazy because they're like, you're an illustration student, you're meant to draw, not write. But I loved words. And then I went on it, like I say, my career. I wrote the course. I loved writing, the document for the course and all the documentation. So focusing on the blog allowed me to be really creative, really free, and not to have any expectations put on me. So that was a brilliant place to start. And then out of that then came the book. And the book, I would love to say, my idea was, I'm going to be sat in a cafe with my laptop, red on stripes, looking really chic, typing up all these words, and it's just all flowing and wonderful. And I've got all this time for writing, when in fact, it was written in between kids being ill, COVID, husband working in an ITU unit during COVID, homeschooling, teaching from home, my students online. And yeah, I remember my very first draft, which was the proposal, was written whilst my kids were throwing up.
God.
Oh, it was horrendous. And then when I submitted my final draft to my editor, my kids were ill again.
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, this is real life. If you want something, you'll make it work.
Yeah.
You know, the heavens didn't open and I was given all this wonderful time to write the book. It was like, yeah, I want this to happen, so I'll just make it happen and I'll make it work.
But it's sort of like whenever that happens to me, like everything like that happens before I go into like a big, like massive action mode, or, you know, like a setting period. Stuff like that happen, and I always think, oh, the universe is testing to see how much I want it.
Definitely. Yeah. How much do you want this? How much? And that was like the case with the book as well, because I went down the traditional route of, I'm going to be published by an amazing publisher, and it's going to bring in all these amazing readers. I'm going to sell, you know, all these copies, and it's going to be this traditional publishing route, because in my mind, I felt that self-publishing was kind of almost like the poor cousin, if you like. But I kept getting no's from publishers. So I put my proposal out, which was 10,000 words plus the full proposal. No, you haven't got a big enough following. You're not a celebrity. This is a lovely idea. It sounds great, but we can't get behind it because you don't have enough traction. You're not, and this is the kicker, you're not an expert. You don't have a PhD. So there was lots of reasons why they didn't want to take me on. And I understand that because it's a risk. But that just kept fueling me. I was just like, right, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to self-publish. And I made the decision, and I'm so glad I did.
Good. Oh, that's good. That's really interesting to know, because it's like, as you're talking, it's such a mirror of my journey. And I didn't realize until you said about being academic and how that love of writing goes through, because when I started writing in a diary when I was 8 years old, and I still write today, so that's 30 years, always writing reflective thoughts and handwriting. I loved typing. So if you know, like in the who wants to do the minutes, I'll do them, like in a meeting or whatever. And so I just love typing. But I did my degree, I've like my master's degree, went into education and would be writing, you know, I love sitting down at a laptop. I'm just using words to describe. I used to write poetry when I was at school, all of those things that I didn't, until you've said that, string it all together of like, well, yeah, of course. And also I'm a bit of a last minute Linda about, like, I remember my master's degree, like my dissertation, I can write pretty fast. Like I can do 500 words in 10 minutes. So I've always sort of blagged it and everything, but that's not because, it's just because it's easy. The words just come out, like you say. But I've, you know, as you know, I'm writing a book at the moment. I've fallen off the wagon of my plan because I've been ill. But I'm over halfway of the first draft. But I want to go exactly the same as what you said. I want to go down that traditional publishing route because to me, it feels like there's a validation. But as you're talking, I'm thinking, but why do I need validation from a stranger to know that I've written a decent book? So why do you feel that like having that mindset then and
Yeah.
that attitude towards publishing the book traditionally, why
Mm.
now do you feel that self-publishing it was much better route for you?
Yeah, so it's really good that you brought that up because it's validation. And it was as I was writing, I was very much thinking, so I'm from South Wales, I'm from the Welsh Valleys. There is a heritage of being working class, being the underdog. And I come from a little village called Cumbach. And all the time, my voice inside was saying, who are you? Who are you to write a book? Why is your story so important that you feel like you've got to share it? And so to go the publishing traditional standard, the big five publishers route was very much of that'll make it
Yeah.
the kind of the validation and the confirmation that I need that I am someone.
Yeah.
And so having all of those no's, what was great for me was the book contains 16 interviews with other people. And as I was interviewing them, it became about their story. And that fueled me in thinking, this isn't just about me. This is about them and about their story and about getting that out. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't care whether a publisher takes me on or not, because these people's story need to be heard. And I thought self-publishing was going to be an absolute nightmare, and I thought that it was going to require so much more work. When I realized that when you go the traditional publishing route, they still don't market your book. You have to do that.
Right.
So they will have a PR team, but that PR team will do the bare minimum. It's still down to you to get your book out there, to meet with your audience, to get yourself visible on social media. When I realized that, I thought, that's what I'm looking for from a publisher, but they're not going to give it to me. So why don't I just do the self-publishing route, which is the door is open for the self-publishing route. There's no holding me back from doing that route. I'm getting no's from the traditional route. When I went the self-publishing route, I started to realize I can write what I want. I can include as much or as little content, which isn't going to be shaped in any way for a particular branding or identity of a publisher. It's going to sit with my identity and who I am as a writer. I can choose the cover. I can choose any design layout that I want. I have full control. And then on top of that, I get to work with some amazing independent people and support them in their business, which was fantastic. I had this personal kind of service with my team that I got around me. So I had an editor, I had a proofreader, and I had a graphic designer. And the three of us work together. And then I'm kind of the engine behind it, driving the audience and the PR. But what I thought would be publish the book, get it on Amazon, off it goes. Yes, I'll do a bit on social media and promote it a bit. I thought, oh, that will be it. But actually what's happening now is there's podcasts, there's workshops, there's talks. There's now the audiobook coming out in April. There's this longevity that the book has taken on a life of its own, all of which I still have creative control over.
Yeah.
And it's in no one else's hands. I get a really nice little royalty through. I shouldn't say little, it's a royalty, and it's a good royalty compared to what I would get if I was to go in the publishing route, which I think is something like 12%. After all the stuff they take away. And there are really successful people out there self-publishing, and I can still get my book into bookshops. I can still get it onto Audible, and it's been bought across the world. And I just think, it's sometimes I think it's important to take control of your own destiny with something that is so personal to you. that you're not handing that power over to anybody else.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. I'm just soaking it in. That's why I'm just a bit like, it's so inspiring. You know, I'm going to
Yeah.
have a published book, whether,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like
Absolutely.
it is because I suppose it's going back to where we've come from, that education and society of those like social constructs, and you're thinking, well, am I really an author if I haven't had my book traditionally published?
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know, have I got a real business if I'm not doing, you know, like running a traditional business? Like neither of
Yeah.
us run traditional
No.
businesses. So why, so therefore I, you know, from my own point of view, should accept that traditional's got nothing to do with it. It's the publishing part and
Yeah.
getting the message out there, and
Definitely.
the fact that I'm putting all of this effort into writing a book, and it needs, you know, it's got to get out there. It's got to.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's really lovely to hear. And
Yeah.
so you say the business came from writing the book. What was the next steps in building the business after the book was written?
So the book is all about changing your perspective to transform your life. And when we look up, we can see other people, we can change the view on our life, we can look around us and see others in a different way, which in turn changes us and changes our perspective. And I wanted to make that happen for people. I realized that I'd been on such a journey myself and recovered from my anxiety disorder. And I wanted to be able to hold my hand back to someone and say, I'm here, I'm 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. This is the way, take my hand and I'll lead you. And coaching was the natural progression from what I do every day as a teacher into helping adults and people who are in business, who are in organizations, who are running their own schools, and they are leaders in their own right, but maybe they don't have the support above them or behind them to say, have a listening ear or have a sounding board or have someone to be able to get, like I said before, have another pair of eyes on what you're doing to help you take the steps forward that you need.
Yeah. And so how long has the business been running now?
So it'll have been a year I
Yes.
started, yeah. And it's really interesting because imposter syndrome shows up even after 20 years of teaching because I'm doing something new, even though I'm still doing exactly the same as what I've been doing for the last 20 years, which is helping people reach their full potential. You know, as a teacher, that's what you do. You identify strengths, weaknesses, and you're a problem solver because you say, right, this is what we could do. Why don't we give this a go? And I'm doing exactly the same in the business, but that wonderful imposter syndrome crops up and says, who do you think you are to coach people or to show people the way?
Yeah. Yeah. But that you're right about, I love that vision of, you know, take my hand, I'm just 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. And I think that, you know, we all have imposter syndrome, but mine again is the same as yours. Like, who do you think you are? Try and help people. But it is just that idea of, well, you just need to be a little bit further ahead. And actually that's you're going to make the most impact with your clients if you are not that far ahead, because they can still relate to you. You can't have like, we wouldn't work well with a coach that's on like 8 figures or something ridiculous, because we just wouldn't be able to relate to how are we going to get there, what's the stepping stones. And I think it's the expectations we set on ourselves of the progress we want our clients to make that makes us have imposter syndrome. But really it's just because we're just, you know, that little bit ahead of them.
And I think with what I've learned with all of this kind of this, it's really interesting, like the inner critic, the imposter syndrome, these negative voices that come in. I've really changed my perspective on them. They are there to help me. And
Yeah.
I see them as friends now because they're annoying friends, don't get
Yeah.
me wrong, but they're the ones who will point things out and say, well, okay, if you care enough about this, like you say you do, you'll want to do a really good job.
Yeah.
And so that, why do you think you could do this? Who do you think you are? It comes from a place of, this matters so much. I want to do my best and I want to be able to support people, and I want to be able to write an amazing book. I want to be able to write a great blog. I want to be able to show up for my clients in the best way possible. That's where it's coming from now, rather than you're not good enough. Because then my retort is, well, okay, well, let me see how I can be good enough.
Yeah.
Let's see how I can get better. Okay. Yeah, I might not have been that great at doing this, that, and the other, but yeah, there's room for improvement. There always is. So let's improve, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's next then on the journey? Now you're looking at full-time work. Full-time for
So
yourself.
yes. So the big leap this year, the thing that has been the most scary and probably will be the most scary thing I've done for a long time is I have handed my notice in at the university that I work in. And so I am stepping out of the education world, if you like, academia. And so, yeah, that's an interesting one because I'm very much a doer. So I'm a doer and I'm like, right, okay, if I'm going to be leaving my job, spent a lot of time thinking about it, talk to you about it, talk to other people who've been in the same situation. You know, I'd always recommend go and speak to people who have done what you're wanting to do and get the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I was like, right, if I'm going to do that, what do I need to do? So one of the things was practically clear my office, go in, empty my desk, get my books, sort stuff out. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm leaving all this behind. And then my kind of reframing kicked in and I was like, no, actually, you're taking all this with you. All of this time, all of this experience, all of this energy, all of the times that I've sat with students with a box of tissues because of what they're going through, the times where I've been able to celebrate with them, all of that is coming with me. And I was just like, yes, that feels so good to be able to say that. I'm taking it with me. I'm not leaving it behind. And again, it comes from that place of sometimes we so often feel like we can only do one thing. I can only be a teacher because that's all I've ever done.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually, life is so big. Life is so long. We have so much that we can bring. And if we start to just pivot slightly or look at things slightly, we can start to open up a world of possibilities and expectations that when we take those blinkers off, we never thought were available to us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You've got such a good way with words. It's good you write.
Oh, thank you. The trouble is I got a captive audience now, you see. That's the thing with being a lecturer. You end up being able to talk and just, I don't know, I think that it's what I love about your podcast as well is the storytelling element of it and the power of us being able to share our stories and being able to talk about the things we go through, because then we don't feel so alone when people listen to this. And they may be a teacher, or they may, like in my book I interviewed an anaesthetist and she said, I've only ever been a doctor, what can I do? But she loved yoga and she was like, well, actually I could try yoga and teach yoga. And that's what she started to do. And I so often feel like we pigeonhole ourselves, never mind society pigeonholing us. We so often back ourselves into a corner, and sometimes we've got to say, yeah, okay, let's see what else is out there.
Yeah. Scary but fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You've done it
Definitely.
now.
Yeah, done and dusted. Like I said to you, ask me in May how I'm feeling. It's going to be a roller coaster. And I'm just like, yeah, let's strap in and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I think I'd already said this to you, like that's the biggest thing of not having I didn't appreciate the impact that my probably my nervous system, the impact of my nervous system of going from such a disciplined, structured life to total freedom in my work. That was such a shock. It was huge, because I was just built to listen for pips and move, or I had every day I would have, being part of the leadership team, I would have these meetings every morning, and then I had such a routine. I had to leave at a certain time, I went a certain way, and etc. But having that, without that routine and that structure, I really did not cope with it. And and I think there's probably, within my mental health, it got a lot worse. It was really bad before COVID. But it did take another dip once I wasn't at work, and once I wasn't at school, because the structure was like such a massive distraction from actually what was going on in my head. It was like I was a workaholic to distract myself from what was going on in my head and how I was really feeling about life. And then when I had the freedom and no distraction, it was like a tidal wave hit me in the face. And then just slowly, that's where I found the warrior energy. And it's going back to what you said. It was probably about a year ago that I realized I can bring that, all of that life is exactly, every single step has led me to exactly here. And like my group program, Project Warrior Boss, when I sell that, it's so easy to sell those spaces, because I know that every single step that I've ever taken has led me to there, because I'm not only supporting the women in there, I'm transforming them from warriors to warriors, which I've been doing since I was like 16, working with adults with learning disabilities, to actually teaching them in a, trauma-informed approach. And having and I did that master's degree, all of that trauma-informed education focus. And I was like, I've just bloody spent all that time on a master's degree. I'm not even in education anymore. And then the light bulb of going, no, but I can still deliver a trauma-informed approach to business owners. Oh my God. And it's those sort of epiphanies that you have, but sometimes it can be too much space. So it's so wonderful to hear that you are having these sort of epiphanies before you enter that mass of freedom, for then you to sort of recognize and go, because I definitely would recommend create your own timetable structure and then tweak it as you feel, as you get used to it. Because I just didn't. I should just come and drop Jackson off and just come and sit and be like, what am I supposed to be doing? Oh, I've got to make some orders. Okay. What do I do then? And then my mind would be so, everything would be so quiet, and my mind would be really loud.
Definitely. And I think that there's so much in what you've said. Like our brains love to go to the easiest, quickest and most memorable experiences. So our default, it works a treat, you default to that. Where's the timetable? Where's the structure? Where's the bell that goes off? And if that's not there, the brain straight away is like, what's going on? I'm actually in danger because I don't have what I usually have, or what I'm used to, or what's safe for me. And something as simple as a timetable, you think, oh gosh, wouldn't it be nice not to work to a timetable? But your brain is like, no, I love a timetable.
But before I quit teaching, like my sister's a deputy head, and we'd always say, like, summer holidays, we would struggle in the summer holidays, and even the Easter. Christmas not so much, because so much happens at Christmas holidays, isn't it? But summer holidays, you're craving that time off. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to do nothing. And then it happens and you're like, oh my God, I feel like shit. Oh my God. And now thinking about it, those summer holidays, it is like you take away that structure from where you are so built in, and your brain doesn't know. That makes such sense. I have to tell my sister now, like, you have to put some tips in the room so you have that structure.
One of the things that I do with so I've got a one-to-one with a head teacher at the moment, And we plan for the half terms, and we plan for holidays in the same way she plans for her school day. So I'm like, right, what do you do when? How do you do it? What are you going to put in place? What do you need to make happen? Is there a deadline? And that could be going shopping, or that could be taking the kids out, but it's planned in, which then gives that kind of security of I'm safe because I've got things in place, but you're enjoying yourself. You know, out having a coffee instead of, you know, being in a classroom.
Yeah. And I find, I mean, I've been doing it for a while now, but I have quite a rigid structure and block book everything. So like today's podcast day, yesterday was Vivid Club and Project Warrior Boss Day. Tomorrow is Making a Vivid Wire Day. And I feel so much better. And even to the point where in my schedule, it's like 8 o'clock, drop Jackson off, 8:15, go here, 8:45, I start this job, you know, like, and for some it is too structured, and I think some people go into that you know, they don't want that. But if you have had that rigidness around your life, you know, be kind to yourself and put some kind of rigidity into your day. So it was so weird when you just said that. It's like two epiphanies in my own brain about writing and having this like summer days. Amazing.
It's good.
So are you planning on writing anymore?
I am, so I've got 2 projects on the go at the moment. So the first one is a book that's a co-authored book. So this is the first time I've done anything like this. So there's a group, and we're in a mastermind, and we're writers in the sense of we want to write a story and we want to tell our story. And the book is called The One Thing I Want You to Know. And so we each write a chapter. And so my chapter is The One Thing I Want You to Know is you are not alone. And it's going to be my story of coming through my recovery with all of the people around me, asking for help, reaching out, and how as a result of community, I was able to become well and also be the better person as a result of it. So that's the first project. And then the second one is I am writing a book called Work, Rest and Play. And it's an A to Z guide on wellbeing. Oh, wow. So I'm kind of bringing all my love of words and my alliteration. I love alliteration. I'm bringing my A to Z kind of ideas to life in that book. And that'll be out next year then. And I'm going to self-publish again. I'm going to, you know, obviously if Penguin come knocking, I'm not going to say no.
No.
You know, I'm not going to say no. That would be wonderful. And to see my books in Waterstones, Tesco's, wherever, amazing. But why limit myself when there's a road ahead that I can take? And at the moment, that's the self-publishing route. So, so that'll be next year.
Amazing. All right. And Mel Robbins self-published her first book. So there you go.
Exactly. In good company.
Absolutely. So what would you tell yourself 10 years ago that you wish you knew then that you know now?
I thought about this. It's such a good question.
You're such a good student. Like, I knew that you would be.
I was like, I was journaling and I was like full on. Do you know, I thought back, so 10 years ago I was in the middle of the lead up to my breakdown. So it was it was a very difficult time actually, because I wasn't honest with myself. And I think that that's what I would say to myself. I would, and I know we've talked about like regression therapy and going back and speaking to yourself. And I would say to myself, I'd take myself by the shoulders and I'd look at my face and I would say to myself, I'd say, Sarah, you need to accept what you're going through and you need to ask for help. And I think that would be my biggest, I think for anyone, I think you need to accept what you're going through, whether that's good, bad, however it presents, accept where you're at And if you need the help, if you need the support, which 9 times out of 10, for anything we do, ask for it and get the help you need. And I thought about it. I was thinking, oh my gosh, that's going to sound quite heavy. And I thought, no, because it is. It's what I would have said to myself, because I may not have gone through what I went through, or I might have gone through it differently. And I think I would have had more support earlier on.
I think asking for help is traditionally seen as a weakness.
Yes.
When actually that is completely wrong, and it's always been wrong. Asking for help is the bravest thing you can do.
I was scared
So
of asking for help. So it required bravery. It required absolute courage when I eventually did ask for help, which was, my gosh, that would have been 5 years later.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 or 5 years later. And I went through so much that I didn't need to go through, because I wasn't brave enough to ask, because we put so much in our way of thinking we've got to do it all, and we've got to cope, and we've got to manage, and we've got to struggle on, because to struggle is noble.
Yes.
Apparently.
Yeah. Martyrish. But that's not the right word. Martyrism.
Yeah.
But also it's in a way the book you've written and how you're helping people would not be as impactful without that period. So it's like a bit of a paradox there, isn't it?
It really is. And I thought, oh yeah, if I hadn't have gone through that, would I be where I am today? Would I have written the book? And would I have had that journey of self-discovery in the way that I did? And I believe everything happens for a reason. And I also say in my book that it's having a breakdown is something I would not wish on my worst enemy, but it's something I'd recommend to everyone.
Yeah.
In a really weird way, because it just was a wake-up call that I needed.
Yeah.
But
the catalyst to change your life. Yeah.
But I would say 10 years ago, I should have asked for help. I eventually did ask for help, and that resulted in me becoming well. So I think that, it came through in the end. It just might have happened sooner rather than later. But ask for help, always. We're here for each other.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer, we can achieve so much more together when we look to each other.
Yeah, and we look up, because you can see other people. Also, just to say, I'm going to put the link for your book in the show notes.
Fab, thank you.
The thing that's fascinating was, who was it when, I'm trying to think of which person it was now, about when you look up, it makes your feet warm.
Yes, so that was Amy Peake.
That's it, Amy. I've just found it. Yeah. So when you have your posture, it helps your heart beat more effectively to blood to your feet. I was like, my friend Carrie, she's always blooming cold, always got cold feet. I'm just going to tell her now. It's like, oh, you're not standing up straight enough.
Open up everything, and it's amazing because your whole body is meant to be upright. And so when your diaphragm can work fully, oxygen is able to fully circulate, which can then result in better blood flow to your extremities, your hands and your feet.
Love it.
So keep looking up.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sarah. Where can people find you?
So my website is www.sarahalexcarter.com, and I'm always on Instagram at I am Sarah Alex Carter. So those are the best places to find me. I'm dabbling in LinkedIn and Pinterest. So those are the two things that I'm kind of getting underway with. But come and say hi. I would love to, chat with you more. And it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I've loved it. It's been awesome.
Oh, thank you, my love. And also, just for listeners, go and follow these people and tell people. I like the listeners to message the guests and say, oh, I found you on Claire's podcast. You say, you're amazing, because it's it's just lovely to share your story. And I think if you're listening to the podcast, it takes a lot for people to share their stories, because you feel, you know, it's not always just as easy as you're rocking up. You do think you've prepared, and it's just such a lovely gift to give somebody a little quick message to just say, I loved hearing you, and then share it. Takes no time and it's completely free, but it makes the world of difference to, you know, people like me and you. So if you're listening and you haven't done it, please, thank you, do it. Okay.
Amazing.
Thanks, lovely. Have an amazing day.
And you, take care.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the No Rest for the Vivid podcast, written, produced and hosted by Claire Hill, and music has been composed by my brother, Phil V.